Picture the 1970s. For a lot of young people, it felt like this explosion of freedom, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And at the heart of it was the hippie trail, this path winding all the way from Europe into the heart of Asia.
Right. Promising adventure, maybe enlightenment, escape.
Exactly. Thousands of travelers, mostly young, full of, well, idealism, looking for something different.
Yeah, really naive, many of them.
But lurking on that same path, seeing it not as a journey of discovery, but as his personal hunting ground, was one man, Charles Sobhraj.
Charles Sobhraj.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about the French serial killer, but also, I mean, a master fraudster, a thief, an escape artist, a complete chameleon.
Known by those chilling names, the Serpent and the Bikini Killer.
Those names really capture something, don't they? His crimes stretched across continents, decades, really, leaving this trail of death, stolen lives, and just chaos.
The Serpent. It makes you think of someone slippery, someone who can just vanish, blend in. Why did he zero in on these hopeful travelers in Southeast Asia? What made them his perfect prey?
Well, the setting is crucial. Southeast Asia, the 70s. That hippie trail, it was kind of an uncontrolled space.
Right.
These travelers, these Western nomads, as some sources call them, they were young, often carrying cash, not always great at keeping in touch back home.
And they'd sort of rejected the usual safety nets, hadn't they?
They had, consciously, often,
Yeah.
looking for philosophical freedom. But in doing that, they created what one source calls a philosophical vacuum.
A void. Just waiting.
Exactly. And Sobhraj was a master at finding those voids and filling them. He could spot their optimism, their willingness to trust someone who seemed charming, sophisticated, someone offering help, a cheap place to stay, maybe a deal on gems.
He saw them as
Innocent and gullible, easy pickings. They traveled light, communication was spotty back then.
Yeah.
You could make someone disappear, and it might take weeks, months for anyone to even notice.
And the sheer scale of it, it wasn't just random, was it? This feels systematic, planned. The early investigations struggled to connect the dots, but what do we think now about the true number?
It's staggering. And look, the numbers are debated, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but the picture is terrifying. The initial investigations focused on maybe 15, 20 confirmed or strongly suspected murders during that peak period.
Right.
But later information, connections made over time. Some sources suggest Sobhraj might have been responsible for up to 215 murders.
215.
Maybe even estimates reaching 250. It's hard to comprehend. This wasn't just a killer. It was like an industry built on murder hidden behind this charming facade.
Unbelievable. 250 lives, potentially. Okay, let's try to understand the man himself. Before the Serpent, what created him? Where did this incredibly manipulative, complex personality come from? His early life must hold some clues, right?
Absolutely. His life started with this deep sense of fracture, of abandonment.
Yeah.
It fed this feeling of statelessness, of never belonging. Born in Saigon, 1944, illegitimate. His Indian father, Pachan Sobhraj, basically refused to acknowledge him, just left.
Right.
So Charles was always moving between continents. With his Vietnamese mother, Noi, and then his French stepfather, Jacques Roussel.
Never putting down roots.
Never. He felt like he didn't belong anywhere, and the sources really point to this as a critical factor psychologically driving his later actions.
That kind of fractured identity. Sometimes people seek connection, but it sounds like for him it bred contempt, isolation.
It seemed so. And something else really crucial. Growing up in Vietnam during that time, he saw extreme violence.
Yeah.
Bombs, bodies in the street,
Okay.
the chaos of war.
Yeah.
But he didn't react like a normal child with fear. Instead, he twisted it. He developed this belief that he was special, immune to violence, like he was protected, somehow set apart from everyone else's suffering their mortality.
Wow. That's a profoundly narcissistic viewpoint forming very early on.
It became his bedrock philosophy. If he was protected, untouchable, then other people, they were just disposable.
A truly chilling way to see the world. When did this mindset start translating into actual crime? Back in France, right?
Yeah, his first real steps into crime were in France. Started stealing cars, minor scams by the time he was 18.
Okay.
But the jump to violence, or the threat of it, was quick
Yeah.
and kind of shocking. There's this incident really early on where he confronted a pregnant housewife with a gun, demanding money.
Oh, my God.
And he only got like 70 francs out of it. It wasn't about the money, you see. It was the control, the power trip, proving he could operate outside the rules. He got arrested after another robbery attempt soon after.
And yet, despite this record, time in jail, he still managed to charm people. Like Chantal, his first wife, she seemed to come from a more stable background. How did he pull that off? How did he convince her to ignore the flashing red lights?
Chantal. Well, these sources suggest she was deeply in love, maybe had this need to save him. She got warnings, explicit warnings, even from a prison social worker, Elaine Bernard, who tried to help Charles.
But she didn't listen.
She rationalized it all away, believed his past was just a handicap from his tough upbringing. She saw him as misunderstood, maybe, and she framed their life together, even the criminal parts, as this grand shared adventure.
An adventure that kicked off with a pretty major fraud, right? Getting them out of France.
Oh, yeah. 1970. He opens a bank account one day, cashes thousands in fake checks drawn on it the next. Classic Sobhraj audacity. And when they had to flee France, he didn't say, "I committed fraud." No, he manipulated her. He claimed they had to run because, and this is a quote, "every time a Vietnamese commits a crime, the police come looking for me."
Wow. Playing the victim card even then?
Exactly. Weaponizing his background, making them seem like the victims of prejudice, not the perpetrators of a serious crime. And that just cemented her loyalty, us against the world.
That pattern, using perceived victimhood to justify doing terrible things, it seems absolutely core to who he was. Okay, before we dig deeper into the horror of the Connaught House and the murders, let's just take a quick moment. If you're finding this story as gripping and chilling as we are, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Whispers of Crime.
Yeah, and follow us on all the podcast platforms too. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, wherever you listen.
Give us a like, leave a comment, let us know your thoughts so far, and definitely check out our previous episodes if you haven't already. Okay, back to Sobhraj. So he sets up shop in Southeast Asia. The Serpent finds his hunting ground. And this is where he earns that truly terrifying nickname, the Bikini Killer. Where did that specific name come from, and what was the system he perfected there? The drugging, the control, turning that apartment into a trap.
Right, the Bikini Killer moniker. It comes directly from the first victim identified in Thailand back in December 1975. One was Teresa Knowlton. She was a young American woman actually planning to become a Buddhist nun, found floating face down in the Gulf of Thailand near Pattaya, and she was wearing a red bikini.
Just the image, the setting, the victim, the swimwear, it's so jarring.
Exactly. It captured the media's attention, the public's imagination in this really macabre way. He gave them a hook, label, the Bikini Killer.
But the murders were just the end point, weren't they? His base in Bangkok, Connaught House, apartment 504, that was the center of the web.
Connaught House was absolutely his operational hub. He was often using the alias Alain Gauthier, pretending to be a gem dealer. And Flat 504 became this sort of twisted private hostel.
How was he luring there?
Overlanders, backpackers, people looking for cheap accommodation, maybe a quick way to make some money, interested in gems. He'd offer help, a place to crash. Sources say he actually despised their lifestyle, their perceived naivete, but he saw them as a constant, renewable resource.
A resource for?
Passports, cash. He was apparently incredibly slick, could lift a passport in seconds, they say.
But it wasn't just theft. The control he exerted was pharmacological, psychological. He didn't just rob them, he broke them down first.
That's maybe the most disturbing part of his method. When the police finally raided his place, they found this incredible arsenal of drugs. 51 different brand names.
51? Like what?
Powerful stuff. Quaaludes, strong sedatives. Mogadon, that's a potent sleeping pill, a hypnotic. Largactil, an antipsychotic, also used for nausea. And he often mixed these with laxatives.
Laxatives? Why not just poison them quickly?
It was strategic. He didn't want quick, obvious deaths that would attract attention immediately. He wanted control. He'd give them low doses first, maybe mixed in food or drink, enough to make them really sick. Diarrhea, vomiting, confusion, weakness.
That they become dependent on him.
Exactly. They're ill, they're disoriented, maybe thousands of miles from home. And who steps in? Alain Gauthier, the helpful gem dealer, offering vitamins, medicine to make them feel better.
Which contained?
The heavy sedatives. Drug capsules. So now they're completely reliant on him. Too sick to leave, too confused to object. Basically prisoners in his apartment before he decided what came next.
He's playing doctor, caretaker, God, essentially, over his victims. And Teresa Knowlton wasn't the only one. This brutality spread, didn't it?
Oh, yes? Think about the Dutch couple, Henk Bintanja and Kaki Hemker. They were drugged. Sobhraj later admitted killing them in 1976. The motive there might have been slightly different. Maybe worried they'd talk to a rival smuggling gang.
And how are they found?
Their bodies were burned, found about 50 kilometers from Ayutthaya. So
how does how does a person justify this systematic, cold-blooded killing? What did the psychological profiles say about him? What was going on inside his head?
The term that comes up again and again in the sources is brilliant psychopath.
Right.
A man with, and this is a direct quote, a perfect indifference to moral good or evil. Classic psychopathy, really. Zero empathy, zero remorse. But combined with high intelligence, charm, manipulation skills, he genuinely saw himself as superior, destined for exceptional functioning, as one source puts it.
So how did he frame the murders to himself? Does he see them as necessary or just nothing?
Pretty much nothing, stripped of all moral weight. When asked directly about the killings later, his answers were just clinical, disturbing. He said, if I have ever killed, it was purely for reasons of business, just a job, like a general in the army.
Like managing inventory, a business decision.
Exactly. And he defended it. He compared himself to soldiers, specifically American pilots dropping napalm in Vietnam. He asked, basically, society accepts what soldiers do in war. Don't I have the same right for my own hivists?
That's breathtakingly arrogant.
It's a completely warped sense of entitlement. He saw his own survival, his own advancement, as a kind of personal war. And any atrocity was justified in service of himself. That connects back to that early need for revenge he wrote about against his father. It shaped everything.
Elevating himself to a military general while preying on defenseless backpackers. Yeah, that really shows the depth of the delusion, doesn't it? Okay, to pull off this kind of international killing spree, Sobhraj couldn't have done it entirely alone. He needed help, didn't he? He had this inner circle, most famously Marie-Andre Leclerc, the Canadian nurse, and Ajay Chowdhury, the young Indian man. What was the dynamic there? How did he recruit them, keep them loyal, complicit in mass murder?
Leclerc, who went by Monique sometimes, she's maybe the most puzzling figure in all this. Educated, described as strong-willed, determined. Yet she leaves her fiancé, an accountant named Jules Dupont, leaves her life in Quebec for Sobhraj, for someone the sources basically call an obvious psychopath. And it seems she wasn't forced into it, not initially anyway. She was drawn to the lifestyle.
She chose excitement over stability, even knowing it was criminal.
The sources suggest the fantasy appealed to her. She admitted she knew his business was illegal. But she loved the perks, the luxury, love, and travel. Sobhraj offered this constant rush, exotic places, jewels. Way more exciting than her life back home, presumably.
And what was her role? She wasn't just along for the ride, was she?
No, she was actively involved, traveling with him on stolen passports like Eric Damour's, assisting in the drugging. She became completely immersed, so much so that even later, in prison with him, she apparently said it was better than the two outside.
That's a really disturbing level of delusion, or maybe obsession. Did it last? Was she loyal to the end?
Not entirely. Even Sobhraj's powerful influence had its limits. Towards the end, she started showing signs of cracking. There are reports of her crying to her ex-fiancé, saying she was sick of everything, that Sobhraj was making her lose my power over the others.
So some awareness crept in.
It seems so. Tragically, she died young from ovarian cancer in April 1984 after she'd been released. Her story's just a dark example of how a seemingly strong person can get completely swallowed by a predator's world.
And then there was Ajay Chowdhury, less talked about perhaps, but crucial for the dirty work.
Absolutely crucial. Ajay Chowdhury did the brutal stuff, guarding victims, helping dispose of bodies, carrying out the druggings and robberies. There was this character analysis done using a French system that described him as sentimental.
Meaning?
Meaning clever, intelligent, but somehow blocked. Psychologically, maybe needing a strong leader figure to feel fulfilled. He could only function really in second place.
So Sobhraj gave him that structure, that leadership he craved. Purpose through crime.
That seems to be the dynamic. Ajay's loyalty wasn't about romance or luxury like Leclerc's. It was about needing to follow orders, finding a place under a dominant figure. His actions were horrific. He helped guard people like Vitaly Hakim, the Turk. He helped dispose of the burned bodies. He helped with the druggings, often just described as looking on silently, a mute gravedigger. He was apparently the one who helped drag Teresa Knowlton into the water.
Just chilling. Okay, while this trio was operating, there was someone trying desperately to stop them. Herman Nippenberg, a Dutch diplomat. Not high-ranking, right?
There.
But he became obsessed.
Nippenberg is the unlikely hero in this story, a third secretary of the Dutch embassy in Bangkok. He got involved because two of the victims, Henk Bintanja and Kaki Hemker, were Dutch nationals.
Right.
And he quickly realized this wasn't just some random crime. This was different, sophisticated, systematic.
Right.
And he became personally obsessed with bringing Sobhraj down. but he faced huge obstacles.
Like what were the main roadblocks?
Institutional apathy, basically.
Yeah.
This was the 70s. International police cooperation wasn't what it is now. He found immense frustration dealing with other embassies, even the local police. He confronted the British embassy, for instance. They had crucial evidence, a diary, photos belonging to the Dutch couple, but they were just slow, bureaucratic, reluctant to get involved. Nippenberg called their response outrageous.
So he was fighting the system as much as the killer?
Pretty much. He was battling indifference, red tape. The Bangkok police were also seen as disorganized at the time. Nippenberg really became the driving force. He compiled meticulous files, pushed relentlessly, often acting outside his official duties.
How did he finally break through?
The key was getting cooperation from people who had been inside Knit House and escaped. Former guests Dominique, Francois, Yannick, Nadine, Remy. They had narrowly avoided being drugged or worse. Their combined testimonies, the specific details they provided, that's what finally painted a clear enough picture for the Thai authorities, the Crime Suppression Division, to issue a warrant for Sobhraj or Alain Gauthier.
Nippenberg's persistence paid off.
It did. He ensured Hank and Cocky weren't just forgotten statistics. His determination was extraordinary.
Before we move on to Sobhraj's later captures and that infamous escape, a quick reminder for everyone listening. Please subscribe to Whispers of Crime on YouTube.
And follow us on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, you name it.
Your support really helps us keep digging into these fascinating and often terrifying true crime stories. We appreciate every single listen, like, and comment. So despite Nippenberg's efforts and the arrest warrant, Sobhraj continued to live up to that name, the Serpent. He was incredibly skilled at slipping away. Can you describe some of those early escapes that really built his legend before Delhi?
Oh, he was a performer when it came to escaping custody, a real master of manipulation and theater. A classic example is the Kabul escape in 1972.
Okay, what happened there?
He faked symptoms of a serious peptic ulcer, apparently managed to make himself vomit blood somehow, convinced the guards he needed urgent hospital treatment. Once in the hospital, he just waited for his moment, saw the key ring on a guard's belt, distracted them somehow, grabbed the keys, unlocked his shackles, and just melted away into the back streets of Kabul. Gone. He had also faked appendicitis before that to get out of police custody in Delhi.
He saw prisons, hospitals, just as stages for his next performance. But his luck finally ran out in Delhi in 1976, a big heist attempt that went disastrously wrong.
Yeah, the Delhi poisoning incident in July 1976, that was really the turning point, the end of his free run across Asia. His plan was incredibly audacious, even for him. He aimed to drug 60 French students.
60? Why?
To steal their passports and cash. He needed them for a planned jewelry heist. He used his usual method, a mix of powdered sleeping pills and laxatives, probably slipped into their drinks or food at the Vikram Hotel.
What went wrong? 60 people is a huge number to control.
He completely miscalculated the dosage, or maybe the collective reaction. Instead of quiet incapacitation, it turned into utter chaos. Students started getting violently ill, moaning, vomiting, collapsing all over the place. Sobhraj himself apparently compared the scene later to a street in Saigon after a bomb had exploded.
That sounds absolutely terrifying, a mass poisoning event.
It must have been horrific. But crucially, even while sick, some of the students figured out he was responsible. They managed to overpower him, hold him until the police arrived.
He couldn't talk his way out of this one.
He tried, claimed it was just a bad reaction to quinine, which people took for malaria. But it's too obvious. Too many people affected. He was finally arrested by Deputy Superintendent Naranda Nath Tuli, a local officer who apparently fancied himself the Sherlock Holmes of Asia.
So the Serpent was finally behind bars, properly caught this time. But his time in India's Tihar jail, it wasn't exactly hard labor, was it? How did he manage that?
Tihar jail just became another system for Sobhraj to game. He spent nearly 2 decades there, from 76 to 97. And he used everything he had, his intelligence, his charm, and crucially, money, to bribe guards, manipulate officials, get special treatment.
So he wasn't suffering.
Far from it. He basically lived in relative comfort. He even boasted to visitors, "I sleep well, eat well, do yoga, and say my prayers." He had access to things other prisoners wouldn't dream of.
Treating jail almost like a safe house.
In a way, yes. It kept him out of reach of Nippenberg and the Thai authorities. He could maintain contact with accomplices, write letters, even influence legal proceedings from inside. It was secure, but comfortable. A strategic pause, you could say.
Which brings us to maybe the most calculated move of his entire career. The 1986 escape from Tihar. It seems nuts why escape only to get caught again. Unless there was a bigger plan.
It was pure, cold-blooded strategy. Absolutely brilliant in its own twisted way. By 1986, he'd served 10 years in India. Extradition to Thailand was looking imminent.
Where he'd face murder charges.
And almost certainly the death penalty, thanks to Nippenberg's relentless work building the case there. Sobhraj knew he had to avoid that at all costs. And the only way to avoid extradition was to be currently serving a sentence in India.
So the 10-year sentence was running out. He needed a new sentence.
Precisely. A longer one. So he throws a birthday party for the guards, laces the food and drinks with his signature drug cocktail sedatives, maybe laxatives too, knocks out the guards, a warder, and escapes with 7 other inmates.
Knowing he'd be recaptured quickly.
Oh, absolutely. He practically walked into their hands in Goa shortly after. The escape itself wasn't the goal. The goal was the recapture, the new charges, escaping prison, drugging guards. That got him another 10-year sentence in India.
Which pushed him past the deadline for the Thai extradition.
Exactly. The Thai statute of limitations for murder was 20 years. By the time his new Indian sentence was up, the Thai warrant would expire. He had successfully manipulated the legal systems of 2 countries to save his own skin. He even said later the jailbreak was only about avoiding Thailand.
Yeah.
Their desire to keep me locked up is no match for my will to be free.
Incredible. Playing chess with international law while his victims, just forgotten pawns in his game. It's truly mind-boggling how he manipulated the system. So he serves out his extended Indian sentence. He's released in 1997, returns to France. A man accused of maybe hundreds of murders who faced execution is now free. Wealthy, seemingly safe. But he couldn't just lay low, could he? What on earth possessed him to go back to Asia in 2003, specifically Nepal?
That 2003 return to Nepal. It's one of the great lingering questions about Sobhraj. Why? He'd been free for 6 years, living relatively openly in Paris, even enjoying some minor celebrity status. And then he just shows up in Kathmandu, which was one of the very few places where there was still an active warrant for his arrest for murder, specifically for Laurent Carrière, and another victim, Connie Jobrančić, killed back in '75.
He was practically walking into a trap. Was it ego? Did he think he was untouchable?
That's the prevailing theory. Pure arrogance. Maybe he craved the attention, the thrill of revisiting his old haunts, daring the authorities. Maybe he thought enough time had passed or the Nepalese authorities wouldn't have their act together.
A fatal miscalculation, then.
A huge one. He was recognized almost instantly by a journalist, arrested shortly after. And this time, the Nepalese justice system acted. He was convicted for the murder of Connie Jobrančić, and later Carrière's murder was added too. It meant a long sentence in Nepal. Finally, some concrete justice for those specific killings.
And he stayed locked up in Nepal until quite recently, right? What led to his release in 2022?
Yeah, he was in prison in Nepal for nearly 2 decades. His release in December 2022 came down to basically age and health. He was 78 years old, reportedly suffering from a serious heart condition. The Nepalese Supreme Court ordered his release on humanitarian grounds.
So compassionate release, essentially.
Right. But with the condition that he leave Nepal within 15 days, a friend apparently helped pay for his ticket back to France. And as far as we know, as of October 2025, that's where he is, living in France.
Free again, after everything. Decades of crime, convictions. Has he ever shown remorse, admitted to anything beyond the business justification?
Not a shred. And that's absolutely key to understanding him. Even in interviews given after his release in 2022 for documentaries and things, he sticks to the script. Complete denial of the murders, maintaining that cold, detached persona. It was all just reasons of business. That perfect indifference to moral good or evil seems utterly unchanged.
His story was already infamous in true crime circles, but it really exploded into mainstream consciousness recently, didn't it, with the TV series?
Oh, absolutely. The BBC Netflix series The Serpent in 2021 brought his story and Nippenberg's story to a massive global audience.
What was the impact of that show, do you think?
It did a few things. It really dramatized Sobhraj's chilling charisma and psychopathy, but it also put a huge focus on the investigation side, too. Nippenberg's struggle, the frustrations, the diplomatic hurdles.
Right, the cat and mouse aspect.
Exactly. And it posed that question very directly. Why did people, especially someone like Marie-Andrée Leclerc, fall under his spell? How could they be drawn into something so dark by someone who, in retrospect, seems like such an obvious psychopath, as the show implies? It brought the whole era, the vulnerability of those travelers, the challenges of international justice back then, into sharp focus for millions.
It definitely captured that tension, the charming monster versus the dogged, ignored investigator.
That was the hook. It's worth remembering, of course, the show stated it was inspired by real events, and sometimes details get scrambled for drama. But the core narrative, the predator using charm and drugs to control and kill, that came through loud and clear.
So here we are, the serpent, an old man now, back in France, still denying everything. What's the ultimate lesson here? What do we take away from this incredibly disturbing life story? Was he just a product of that fractured, stateless childhood, or simply evil, driven by this chilling lack of morality?
It's such a complex question, isn't it? His upbringing, that sense of dislocation, the exposure to violence, it undoubtedly played a role in shaping his worldview, that need for revenge, that feeling of being special, outside the rule.
But it doesn't excuse it.
Not at all. Ultimately, his life is defined by the choices he made, deliberate choices to exploit, manipulate, and destroy other human beings. His story is this terrifying showcase of how psychopathy can operate when it's paired with high intelligence and extreme narcissism. He had this almost magnetic ability to draw people in, victims, lovers, accomplices, all serving his obsession with being exceptional, above common decency.
It seems like his real talent wasn't theft or even murder, but that deep psychological manipulation, turning people into tools or targets.
That was his true dark art. And his story remains this stark warning, doesn't it? Not just about the dangers of travel, but about the predators who walk among us, often hidden behind the most convincing masks of charm and helpfulness. Forensic science has improved, yes, making it harder to get away with murder today.
But the psychological predator...
That threat remains. Sobhraj proved how effectively someone can exploit trust, exploit kindness, exploit the gaps in systems. He's a chilling reminder that sometimes the real monster is the one offering you a smile and a helping hand.
That is a truly unsettling thought to end on. Profoundly disturbing. Okay, we have to leave it there for today, but we really want to know what you think. What stands out most to you about Charle Sobhraj? Was he purely a monster born or made, or do you see his circumstances playing a bigger role? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your take on it.
And please, if you found this exploration compelling, give us a like and definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, Whispers of Crime. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep look into the shadows.
Also, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, all the major podcast platforms. Check out our back catalog, too.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one.